Because the Prophet ﷺ is going to see some amazing things in this journey. And it's not things that an ordinary human being can see. So the Prophet ﷺ has to be prepared. And one of the ways he is prepared is his heart is washed with Zamzam water, just like it was washed when he was 4 years old. You see, it's not really your eyes that you see through. I know you're saying, of course you see through your eyes, but there's plenty of people who are blind and they understand the world better than some people who have perfect vision. The real way you see things, the reality of things, is through your heart. When your heart is pure and clean, you can understand the reality of life. When your heart is corrupted and you've done so many sins and you're far away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if you've got perfect vision in your eyes, you won't be able to understand the reality of life. So the Prophet ﷺ's heart is purified, it's washed, it's strengthened. And then Jibreel presents an animal to the Prophet ﷺ, an animal which he's never seen before and nobody has ever seen before. It's called Al-Buraq. Al-Buraq. Does anybody remember this word Al-Buraq? It's derived from an Arabic word which means Al-Barq. Al-Barq. What does Barq mean? Anybody know? يَكَادُ الْبَرْقُ يَخْتَفُ أَبْصَارَهُمْ. Sumaya says winged horse. Daud says wind. What about Omar? Can we hear from Omar? What does Barq mean?
Omar, you're off mute. Go ahead.
Lightning.
Lightning. Yes, okay, yeah, lightning, thunder. Yeah, if we were thunder and lightning, yeah, this is Barq. Okay. So this animal is called Barq or Buraq because every footstep it takes, it goes to the horizon. It's so fast. Yeah, every footstep it takes, it goes to the horizon. And the Prophet ﷺ manages to move from Mecca to Jerusalem, a journey which normally takes months, in just a few moments. That's why in the Qur'an, when Allah says, Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi laylan min al-masjid al-haram, when the word is used, asra laylan, it means a journey which takes place in part of the night. If it said asra laylatan, this means a journey which takes the whole night. But the Prophet ﷺ just went in part of the night. Now, when the Prophet ﷺ first got onto the Buraq, it was startled. It actually rose up, you know, like a horse does, it rises up. And Jibreel had to tell the Buraq off and said, do you know who is on your back? This is the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And then the Buraq calmed down. Now, a lot of you, in trying to answer what is Buraq, you gave a description of the animal, which is amazing. I was only asking you about what the Buraq is, what the word Barq means, but you went one step ahead. You described the animal. It is a white animal, brilliant white, pure white. It is larger than a mule, but smaller than a donkey. So it's actually quite a smaller animal, not like a horse. Yeah, most people think of it as a horse. It was actually smaller than that. And it had wings, so it would fly very fast. And nobody had ever ridden this animal. It had been created in Jannah just for the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So the Prophet ﷺ got on this animal and they raced to Jerusalem. And while they are moving, the Prophet ﷺ could see so many amazing things from the unseen. He could see some of the shayateen. He also saw some of the camels en route to Jerusalem. And one of the things he saw was the Prophet Musa alayhi salam while he is praying in his grave. And the Prophet ﷺ described what Musa alayhi salam looked like. And he compared him to one of the companions. Does anybody know what Musa alayhi salam actually used to look like? The Prophet ﷺ described him very, very vividly. Anybody know? Does anybody want to come off mute or maybe use a tall? Adam, very good. Tall. The Prophet ﷺ described him as tiwal, excessively tall, very tall. Strong, very good. The Prophet ﷺ described him as shidad, which means powerfully built. And Shamima, that's amazing. The Prophet ﷺ described described him as Adami. Adami means dark-skinned. Dark-skinned. So he was very tall, dark-skinned, and powerfully built. And he had a kind of curly hair. So the Prophet ﷺ saw him praying in his grave. Now, any of us.
Sorry, Ustad Sahal, if you've got on mute, you can just come off mute.
Yeah, so somebody said he was a giant. He wasn't a giant, he was just really tall. Yeah. So now all of us, once we pass away, once we died, Adam mentioned he had a stutter. Yes, well, not a stutter as such. He had like a lisp. Okay. So like a speech impediment, yeah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cured him of that. So now the Prophet ﷺ goes through to Masjid Al Aqsa. Now at that time, Masjid Al Aqsa is kind of like abandoned as a place. This is now 1,400 years ago. Nobody actually treats it respectfully at that point. So it was like a rubbish tip. But we don't know if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala transformed the place or if there was still a place there which was still being used as a place of prayer. But the Prophet ﷺ got off. He fastened the animal to the Buraq wall. You remember we looked at the Buraq wall? And then the Prophet ﷺ, he proceeded to go in the masjid, and all the prophets had been brought back to life to pray behind the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is very important. It shows us all the prophets are brothers. All the prophets are brothers in faith. They had the same religion. They used to stand, they used to bow, they used to prostrate down, they used to recite, they used to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, Dawood said, did the Prophet Musa alayhi salam speak to Allah? Yes, that's one of his names, Kalimullah, the one who spoke to Allah often, a lot. So the Prophet ﷺ led all the prophets in prayer. Now, when the Prophet ﷺ came out of the masjid, Jibreel alayhi salam presented him two containers, a choice. One of the containers had wine and one of the containers had milk. Which one did the Prophet ﷺ choose? He was given a choice. You can use the chat facility, or Ustad Akhtar can choose somebody.
Yeah, let's hear from Maryam.
Milk, isn't it?
Sorry?
That cold.
Milk. The milk. Yes, the milk. The Prophet ﷺ chose the milk, and Jibreel said, you have chosen right. The milk represents the fitrah. Okay? Now, I need to spend a minute describing to you what the fitrah is. The fitrah is like the natural, pure state of human beings. Okay? Human beings, in our religion, in Islam, we believe human beings are made pure. They are not born with original sin. They are not born doomed, but they are born pure. You know, a baby, when they're born, they're so cute, they're so pure. Everyone loves babies because they still have that natural fitrah. So fitrah is the natural state in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you. It's a bit like a Google Maps for your soul. Okay, when you're growing up, even before you learn about Islam, you know things, right? Stealing is wrong, hurting someone younger than you is wrong, being rude is wrong. Before parents even tell you, you kind of have that idea already. That is like your Google Maps within your soul telling you the difference between right and wrong. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you with that, every single human being. That's why you find some people accept Islam and they've never come into contact with any Muslims and they haven't read anything about Islam. They have that Google Maps within them which tells them that, look, this is the right religion. Okay? So the Prophet ﷺ, he chose the milk, and the milk represented al-fitrah. The Prophet ﷺ now went and, sorry, just excuse me for a minute. They put the washing machine on and it's making so much noise. Ustad Akhtar, can you give me a second?
We can't hear it, Ustad Sahal. It's not disturbing us at all.
Oh, you can't hear it, yeah?
No, not at all.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Okay. So the Prophet ﷺ then went, according to some scholars, to the Qubbat al-Sakhra, and he was taken on the rock through the heavens. Okay? And he went up. Now, I'm gonna explain to you something about the heavens which you might not have learned before, and I can't remember if I've explained this to you before. Now, when in the Quran you hear sab'a samawat, the seven heavens, sab'a samawat. Do you understand what that is? Seven heavens, sab'a samawat. Who wants to try and explain what the sab'a samawat are?
You just raise your virtual hand, and then we'll hear from a few of you. Let's hear from Ismahan. Go ahead, Ismahan. Come off mute.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what's the sab'a samawat?
They're the seven heavens.
Yeah, so can you explain where is that then? What's the seven heavens?
The sky.
It's the skies.
Above the skies.
Above the skies. That's actually a very good answer. A lot of people think sab'a samawat is about Jannah. Okay. Jannah has hundreds of levels. According to some scholars, thousands of levels. Okay. Somebody once mentioned this before. It's an opinion of scholars that there are as many levels in Jannah as there are verses of the Quran, which is over 6,000. The seven skies, they are what is above our universe. Okay, so our entire universe, this is as-samawat al-ula, the first sky. The Prophet ﷺ in Al-Mi'raj, he went right up to the limit of the first sky. And there is an angel there. When the Prophet ﷺ and Jibreel reached that limit, an angel...
Oh, you've gone on mute again, Ustad.
Oops, I have been commanded to only open this for the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And he gave his salam to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So they went past the first sky. Then they entered the second sky. Now, no human being in earth ever, past, present, future, will ever be able to go beyond the first limit, which is the limit of our universe. The Prophet ﷺ went on to the second level, the third level, the fourth level, the fifth level, the sixth level, and the seventh level. And at each level, the Prophet ﷺ met prophets. Okay? So at the first level, he met the Prophet Adam alayhi salam. And he gave his salam to the Prophet Adam. And the Prophet Adam returned the salam and professed Iman in the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, that he believes in the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Then they went to the second heaven, and again there was an angel guarding the gate to the second heaven. Now each heaven compared to the heaven before, or each sky compared to the sky before, is like a ring thrown in the desert. So in the second sky, they met Yahya, the son of Zakaria, and Isa alayhi salam. So Yahya and Isa were together in the same time. Both were prophets. So in the second sky, the Prophet ﷺ met Yahya and Isa alayhi salam. And again, both of them said they believed in the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and gave their salams to the Prophet ﷺ. Then in the third sky, they met the Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. And the same thing happened. And then they went to the fourth sky. And in the fourth sky, they met the Prophet Idris alayhi salam. And in the fifth sky, they met the Prophet Harun alayhi salam. In the sixth sky, they met the Prophet Musa alayhi salam. And in the seventh sky, they met the greatest prophet after the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And who is that? Who did they meet in the seventh sky? Okay, let's hear from someone.
Let's hear from Forhan.
Ibrahim.
Ibrahim alayhi salam, yes. And the Prophet ﷺ saw something very special. He saw all the children who had passed away being looked after by the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. So when we feel very saddened by the scenes in Palestine of children being targeted, children dying, schools being destroyed, children dying in their homes and their flats, we are very saddened and we are very angry. But one thing we should always remember is that all of these children, all of them, are being looked after by the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam in the seventh sky. And they are very happy with the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. So now the Prophet ﷺ reaches the limit of the sab'a samawat, and now he moves into the scenes of the hereafter. Now tomorrow, inshallah, we'll speak about what the Prophet ﷺ sees when he moves into the scenes of the hereafter, where he sees the Jannah, where he sees Jahannam, where he sees As-Sidratul Muntaha, and where he's in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So make sure that you join us tomorrow, because the second part of the journey, people don't know much about it. They know a lot about the first part of the journey, but not the second part of the journey. Ustad Akhtar, can we go back to the PowerPoint now?
Yeah, let's get that up for you.
So here is a picture. We've spoken about this many times before, about the whole of the Masjid Al Aqsa, the whole of the compound. Okay, we need to try, if we can, with our families, to go to Masjid Al Aqsa, to pray there, to go to all of these different parts, to know about them, to recognize them. And a very good place you can find information on that is Islamic Landmarks. Islamic Landmarks got a website and they've got an app, and you can find out so much information about that. And Al Jazeera has a 3D kind of tour of Masjid Al Aqsa as well. Okay, Ustad Akhtar, next slide. So, where have things gone so terribly wrong? We learned about around 400 years, Muslims, Christians, and Jews living very peacefully together, same language, same culture, different religions, but respecting each other's religions. So this is where really it's all gone wrong. Palestine as a country existed under the Ottoman Empire. Okay, it was a very diverse country, had different religions. Okay, they lived peacefully together. It had a very beautiful landscape. Each town, each city, each village had its own natural water source. They were very famous for their cuisine, their food. Still to today, we have some very famous Palestinian dishes like maqlouba. It's that famous dish where they kind of have the chicken and fried vegetables with rice, and they take the pot and they turn it upside down and then they kind of tap it. It's amazing. They had the kanafa, which is the dessert, the sweet dish. They had a very thriving culture, and there was a lot of respect between the religions. So a lot of the times when you see the most sacred site in Judaism, the Western Wall, it used to be a very old alleyway, but it was one of the Muslim khulafa who expanded it and made it comfortable for Jewish people to worship. Still to this day, the Church of the Holy Nativity, the keys are held by a Muslim person. That's the most sacred church in Christianity. So people had a very thriving culture. They were poor, but they had access to, food, water. There were people who lived there. There's been an attempt to say that Palestine was basically empty. It was just full of nomads. No, it was a country. And even to this day, you can get some coins from Palestine from that era. So there is no Israel in that period. Pre-1947, there is no Israel. There is only Palestine. Now, the vast majority of those people are Palestinian Muslim Arabs. Okay, Palestinian Muslim Arabs. So 94% are either Muslim Arabs or Christian Arabs, but vast majority are Muslim Arabs. Now 6% are Jewish people, and they are also Arab speaking, and they live there peacefully in Palestine. Now, in the end of the 19th century, there is a new belief system, a new ideology, which is introduced by Theodor Herzl in 1897. Now that is called Zionism. That has nothing to do with Judaism, but what it is a belief that Jewish people should have their own country. Now, originally, they considered different countries like Argentina, like Uganda, but they finally settled on Palestine. And there's many reasons why they settled on Palestine. And one of the reasons was that Great Britain at that time They were in charge of Egypt and the Suez Canal, which is just below Palestine. And above that, they had a heavy influence in the Middle East. But more importantly, they controlled India as well. So they wanted a country which they could have a lot of influence over and decide what happens, to protect their interests in Egypt and the Suez Canal, and also protect their interests in India. So they supported Theodor Herzl and his idea of turning Palestine into a Jewish state. Now, remember, most Jewish people living there are perfectly happy with the situation. They enjoy good relationships with their neighbors. They have a very strong Arab culture. But more and more Jewish people started to move away, leave their home countries and move into Palestine from Europe. Many Jewish people were suffering persecution in Europe. They were suffering from what you may have learned in school, anti-Semitism. Another name you may have learned is pogroms, which were these kind of terrible riots in Europe, especially in Russia, especially in Eastern Europe, and even at certain points in Great Britain, riots where Jewish people were literally driven out and killed. And there was a lot of violence against them. So Jewish people were actually escaping persecution in Europe. And that's why from the end of the 19th century, you find the number of Jewish people increasing. Then around 1917, something very important happened. What happened in 1917? Anybody remember from your history? Anybody remember? You can use the chat facility. What happened in 1917? No? Okay, it was the end of the First World War. End of the First World War. Yeah. The Holocaust happened in the Second World War. Yeah. And the Balfour Declaration. Excellent. So with the end of the Second World War, there was the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. Now, there's various reasons why, but the Ottoman Empire had taken sides with Germany, and we don't have time to explain why. But they had taken sides with Germany. They had lost in World War I, and as a result, they had lost a lot of their territories. And Britain took over Palestine. And in 1917, they introduced the Balfour Declaration, which basically started the process of splitting Palestine and giving more control over to Jewish immigrants who had come from Europe, and giving them control over large parts of Palestine. Now, this process continued from 1917. It had already started after 1897, and it continued, and the population of Jewish people increased until it reached almost 1/3 of Palestine, almost 1/3 of Palestine. And there is a lot of tension in the country. There's a lot of fighting. Palestinians are now being attacked by British army forces, and also attacked by some of the Jewish gangs, which paramilitary gangs, or paramilitary forces, which later became the Israeli Defense Force. Now, in 1947, Britain kind of has enough of what's happening in Palestine. They are now busy with the Second World War, and or they are now busy picking up all the pieces of the Second World War, and they decide to say, you know what, forget this, we're leaving. And they leave Palestine and give the problem to the UN. And the UN, which has been newly formed, comes up with this idea of a partition plan to split Palestine into two states, Israel and Palestine. Now, the white bit in the second map you can see is the new Israel, which was created by the UN. And despite being a minority of the population, around 35%, they used to be 6%, now they're 35%, they are given the majority of the country. And the Palestinians are given the green bit on the right, which is called the West Bank, and the green bit on the left, which is called the Gaza Strip. Now, there's various wars which take place between Israel and the surrounding Arab countries. But by this time, Israel is being supported by a new superpower, because Britain has lost influence, has lost its kind of influence across the world, and is no longer interested in this part of the world. And that's when the United States join and support Israel. And the two green bits now, over time, Palestinians are left with less and less territory, especially after the 1967 war. And Israel pretty much controls the whole region. Now, the last map you can see describes what's really happening nowadays, where you have a tiny strip called the Gaza Strip on the western side. If you see, it's very tiny little strip, okay, that borders Egypt. That is where a lot of the suffering is happening at the moment. And those shades of green you find on the right side, that's actually where Al Aqsa is. It's in Jerusalem, which is part of the West Bank. Now, if you wanted to sum up in a sentence what has happened from 1947 right up to 2005, how would you sum up, looking at those maps, what is actually happening? You don't have to be an expert in politics. I think you just have to be able to tell the difference between green and white. So who can describe what is happening?
Let's hear from Adam and Lana. Let's come off mute.
So it's shrunken. The Israelis have taken over more and more land, and then the Palestine keeps on getting smaller, like
Okay,
every year, because it's getting occupied.
very good. And Khalid says wiping Palestine off the map. That's exactly what this is about. And you have to always remember that. This has nothing to do with Judaism and Islam, okay? If it was Chinese people who came and took over Palestine, then the Palestinians would have fought the Chinese people. If it was African people who came over and took over Palestine, then the Palestinians would have fought the African people. And if the people living in Palestine were not Muslims, but were, I don't know, Australians, then they would have fought because they're being wiped out. It's not as if they're being told, okay, you take this part of the country, we'll take this part. No, they're just being wiped out. And a lot of you, even though you're very young, you can see from the maps over time that Palestine is being wiped out and Israel is gradually taking over the territory, the whole country. And that's exactly what Theodore Herzl spoke about as far back as 1897. So this has been going on for the best part of 150 years. It's not about Judaism. It's not about Islam. It's about one group of people coming from Europe, taking over another group of people's country and basically wiping them out, okay? And unfortunately, this has happened over and over again. It's something that Europeans have done in all parts of the world. Yeah, whether you're looking at Africa, whether you're looking at the Asian subcontinent, India, whether you're looking at the Aborigine people, whether you're looking at native Indians in North and South North America. It's happened throughout the world, and it's something that Europeans have done throughout the world. And it's very much rooted in racism, not religion. It's the belief that one race is superior to other people and they can just go to their countries and take over their land. So this has nothing to do with religion. Muslims and Jews have lived peacefully for more than 400 years in Palestine, but it's got everything to do with land and taking over land. Okay, inshallah, that's a bit of a long session. Sorry, Ustad Akhtar, I was talking a bit too much there. But inshallah, I think it's our favorite part now, isn't it?
Yeah, we're going to give you all an opportunity to see how much you've heard, listened to, and took on board today, inshallah. So we're going to have some questions pop up on your screen. So whilst you see the questions there, then have a listen. And those of you on YouTube as well, please do put your answers through, inshallah, and you'll be able to put it on there. So let's get the first question. Oh, and a poll has been launched in this meeting. Oh, that's not good. Let's stop that. Let's try this again.
Oh, good, good.
Hold on. Let me try this one.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, so perfect. So the first question is, which surah of the Quran mentions the miraculous night journey? Is it A, Surah Al-Layl, B, Surah Al-Qadr, C, Surah Al-Baqarah, or D, Surah Al-Isra, otherwise known as Bani Israel? So is it A, Surah Al-Layl, B, Surah Al-Qadr, C, Surah Al-Baqarah, or D, Surah Al-Isra? Have a look. And we've had maybe 3/4 of you answer, so we give you another 4 seconds. If you don't know, take a guess, A, B, C, or D, and let's share the results with you, Ustad. And here are the results.
MashaAllah, excellent. Paying close attention, not an easy question at all. Surah Al-Isra, or as it's known as Banu Israel, is the surah which mentions the miraculous night journey. Excellent, well done. 85% got it right. Well done.
Excellent, very good. Let's go over to question number 2. And question number 2 for today is, what kind of animal was Burak? Was he A, unicorn, B, a horse, C, bigger than a mule but smaller than a donkey, or D, bigger than a horse but smaller than a camel? So is it A, Burak? What type of animal is he? Is he a unicorn, a horse? Was he bigger than a mule but smaller than a donkey? Or was he bigger than a horse but smaller than a camel? Those of you on YouTube, you can type in your answer A, B, or C, or D. We'll give you another 3 seconds. I think we've had almost everybody answer. So let's share the results with you and see what they replied. Here we go.
Ustad, the correct answer is, Ustad Akhtar, is C, bigger than a mule, smaller than a donkey. But Ustad, there are 3 people who said unicorn. Now, I think we need to know who those 3 people are, because unicorns are not real. Yeah, unicorns are not real. Who said it? I think it was Adam. It looks a bit suspicious to me. Or was it Maimuna who said unicorn? No? Or could it have been Tasneem? I think it was Adil Khan. Adil Khan is laughing his head off. I think it was him. Ustad Akhtar. Unicorns are not real, Ustad.
What do you mean unicorns are not real?
They're just fancy animals in kids' stories like Santa Claus or something, you know? They're not real.
All right, good. Well, you've broken a few hearts there, Ustad. But let's go to question number 3. Let's have a look at what question number 3 is. And that is, the Prophet ﷺ was presented with a container of wine or a container of milk. What does the milk represent? Does it A, represent fitra, your natural disposition, B, taqwa, C, healthy eating, or D, sidq, truthfulness? A, B, C, or D. A, does the milk that the Prophet ﷺ chose represent the fitra? B, taqwa, C, healthy eating, or D, as-sidq, the truthfulness or truthfulness? So we'll give you a few seconds to answer that. If you're not sure, type in an answer, any answer you want. And I think we've had most people do that. So let's share the results with everybody and demonstrate where everybody is. Here we go.
Okay, Ustad Akhtar, that's good. Most of you got it right. It's actually fitra, the natural disposition. It's the pure way in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made every human being. So 77% of you got that right. Very good, excellent, mashallah.
Yeah, very good, mashallah. Let's have a look at the next question for today. Question number 4. Which prophet did the Prophet ﷺ see praying in his grave? Got to be paying attention to this one. Was it Prophet Adam alayhi salam, B, Yunus alayhi salam, C, Ibrahim alayhi salam, or D, the Prophet Musa alayhi salam? So which prophet did the Prophet ﷺ see praying in his grave? Was it A, Adam, B, Prophet Yunus alayhi salam, C, Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, or D, Prophet Musa alayhi salam? I think we've got them a little bit guessing on this one, Ustad.
I know.
Yeah. It's a good one, this one. I actually didn't know this, but I heard this for the first time today when you said this. So this is an interesting one. So I'll give you another 5 seconds, everybody, to put your answer in, put whatever you want to put, A, B, C, or D, those of you on YouTube. And let's share the responses. Here we go.
MashaAllah, I'm actually over the moon there. It's kind of, I've caught a few people out. It was the Prophet Musa alayhi salam. 57% of you got that right. Don't you remember we were talking about what does Musa look like? He's tall, powerfully built, dark-skinned. You know, we said all of those things. So I caught a few of you out. So I'm actually really happy. I'm
Yeah,
normally
very
not this
good.
happy, but I'm really happy that I caught some of you out.
And to remember that 36 people, 57% got it right. Well done, mashallah. That was a
MashaAllah.
tough one. That was a tough one.
Mm.
Okay, good. Let's see if we can go to our final question for today. So have a look at this one. Which prophet did the Prophet ﷺ meet on the first level of the skies? So was it Prophet Adam alayhi salam? Was it Yunus alayhi salam? Was it Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam? Or was it the Prophet Musa alayhi salam? So which prophet did the Prophet ﷺ meet at the first level of the skies? Was it Prophet Adam alayhi salam? Prophet Yunus alayhi salam? Was it C, Ibrahim alayhi salam? Or was it D, the Prophet Musa alayhi salam?
I
And
think they're
about
going to struggle even more with this one.
well, let's see. Let's see. I mean, we'll give you another 5 seconds to put your answers through. So guess A, B, C, or D if you're not sure. And we'll see where you get. And here we go. Let's end the poll and let's share the results.
Oh,
Oh, they
Allah,
didn't do
that's
too
quite.
bad.
Yeah, they did quite well. I hardly mentioned anything about that. Which prophets? I just mentioned it very quickly. That Prophet Adam, alayhi salam, on the first level. And if you remind me tomorrow, Ustad Akhtar, we'll talk about why these prophets. Why did the Prophet ﷺ see these prophets? Each one of them have a very important symbolism for the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So, inshallah ta'ala, we've reached the end. Please do make sure you tune in tomorrow because we are going to speak about the rest of the Prophet ﷺ's journey in the heavens when he actually stands in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're also going to mention why the Prophet ﷺ saw these prophets in the different levels. So, Prophet Adam alayhi salam, he was expelled from Jannah. He had to leave Jannah and then he came back, right? So this is like a bit of a message for the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ that you will also come back to Jannah. So inshallah ta'ala, Ustad Akhtar, I think we're done for today.
We are. I think we've got a couple of people with some burning questions that they want to ask you, Ustad. So before we do that, we want to remind everybody, because people may need to leave, that 6 p.m. tomorrow, inshallah, come. And those of you, everybody here, your job is to invite one extra person to come. Think of your cousins, your neighbors, your friends, your classmates. Invite one more person to come and join us tomorrow at 6 o'clock. And now we're going to take some questions very briefly for around 2 or 3 minutes. Let's start with Hannah. Hannah, what's your question, please? Come up with you.
Why did you put up another question?
I put up another question, which was to find out how many people have attended, because some people are watching and they've got more than 2 people, 3 people, so on. So we just want to see how many people. We have 57 people joined, but the actual amount of people that have been watching us today is over 100, mashallah, which is very, very great. So that's why we put up that question. Very good, Hannah. Let's see from a few of the others. So Zakaria, what's your question, please, Zakaria?
Look at my dad. His name is Adil, and he's right here.
Okay, mashallah. Great to meet you and your dad. Great to have you here.
You already know him.
Jazakallah. Excellent. Well, let's hear from Furhan. Furhan. What's your question, please, Furhan? Come off mute.
What time do you have to join again?
Yeah, good question. So tomorrow's session starts at 6 o'clock. And if you can log in just a few minutes before, say 5 to 6, then we can all start on time, inshallah. Perfect. Very good. Thank you. Muhammad Ayub, what's your question, please?
Is there any people like buried in the Masjid Al Aqsa?
Is there any people buried in Masjid Al Aqsa, Ustad Sahal?
Yeah, so within the Masjid Al Aqsa compound, just outside the walls, there is a graveyard where some of the people of Jerusalem are buried. So there are 2 companions buried there. At the moment, I completely forgot their names. But inshallah, maybe you can research it or I can research it as well. So there are 2 companions of the Prophet ﷺ buried just outside Jerusalem. And the whole of Jerusalem, and actually the whole of Palestine, thousands and thousands of prophets are buried there. Yeah, because so many of the prophets came through Palestine or were based in Palestine. In fact, all the prophets you could think of in the Quran, almost every single one of them has a strong connection with Palestine.
Yeah, great, very good. Let's hear from Adam. Adam, what's your question? Come off mute, please.
Why did your camera go like sideways?
You know, I'm not very. I buy this cheap tripod, yeah, and it just keeps on sliding down and up, and I don't know what it's doing.
Okay,
And
good answer.
my children won't help me. You know, I always say like, set me up, and then they just like they always, nah, we ain't got time. So
Okay,
sorry.
Yeah, I haven't got time as well to listen to that as well. Let's hear from Adam and Lana. Adam, go ahead, come off mute. What's your question?
You know, in Palestine, if this genocide you were mentioning earlier, if it was happening in like another country, like in Africa or somewhere else, if Israel was in Africa or somewhere else, would the like marches and stuff, do you think it would still be as big and like there'd still be like all these commotion? No, not corruption either. There's these marches.
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. Palestine has a special place in everybody's hearts. Yeah. So if this same thing was happening in parts of Africa, which it does, by the way, there are parts of Africa which are always suffering from, some kind of unrest and killing of civilians. In fact, Sudan, there is a lot of suffering happening in Sudan, in Southeast Asia, in Kashmir, in the Far East, in Turkestan, yeah, also in Southeast Asia, in Burma. Very, very severe kind of genocide and driving people out their homes. Palestine has a special special place in people's heart, and that's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah placed that there, a love of Palestine for people. The other thing which Palestinians themselves have done, they're very smart. So they've recorded so much on their personal devices and broadcast to the world what's happening to them, which has helped people identify with them. Yeah, so you've seen some of the images and the pictures. It's no longer just like a war happening somewhere. It's actually real people's life stories. And the Palestinians have been very effective in using social media to expose what's happening to them. And people, as a result, have been moved across the world. So it's a very good question. Yeah.
Jazakallah khair. It is 7:02. Those of you who haven't had your questions asked, remember it for tomorrow, inshallah. We will try and come back to it, but we do need to finish now, inshallah. But this time you get to come off mute and shout and scream and say salam. So let's hear from all of you guys, and then inshallah we'll see you tomorrow.
Assalamu alaikum.
How are you doing that with the dotted paper?
I have no idea.
Who's doing this? This is so cool.
Assalamu alaikum.
Can I just ask, is it the same meeting code for tomorrow?
It is, yeah, exactly the same Zoom link, inshallah.
Okay, jazakallah.